So we say that we have 9 solutions. What's the secret there? Maybe we shouldn't say.
Yeah, you might need to watch carefully.
Yes, then maybe we'll have a prize for somebody who actually notices. The first person that notices what's up with the 9, we should give a prize to. So people are starting to arrive like crazy, so thanks very much for...
Yeah, let's go up to 200 already.
Yeah, for pouring in. We will start promptly because we really have quite a bit of, well, at least 9 solutions to go through, and we want to set the table a little bit at the beginning as well. So,
yeah, I think probably most people today are government, local government,
yes,
looking at the list. It's probably the main focus of the presentation, isn't it? But we do talk a little bit about private open data and open data with NGOs and in academia as well. So hopefully there's something for everyone.
And I think as well we'll have to be careful how much we bombard everybody at the end with other links, because there's so much information out there. Even just TED Talks, I think we're aware of at least 3.
Yeah, and they're good.
Really good TED Talks on this topic. So it's and even as we consider open data, one of the things is, are we talking about using it or sharing it?
Yeah.
And today we're talking much more on the sharing side than actually the uses of it. Would be topics for many webinars. And we will start our webinar. So my name is Dale Lutz. I'm one of the co-founders here at Safe Software. We've been in the data moving business for almost 22 years, and I'm joined today by
Stuart Harper. I'm in the FME Cloud team, so responsible for getting FME Cloud out and managing that side of things. And
And prior to that, FME Server.
Yeah, FME Server support for many years, so I know the products inside out now.
Yes. So just a couple thoughts about us. We are Safe Software. Again, we've been around 22 years in the business of moving data from wherever it is to wherever it needs to be. And to do that, we have a product that we call FME that we sell to folks, and it is a tool for quickly setting up interesting data transformations from a source to a destination. FME today supports about 350 different formats and systems. Many of them are open data systems, and many of our customers worldwide are using FME in the process of either preparing or part of an open data system. And so that's why this is a topic that we have become quite interested in, and we've been fortunate enough to be able to spend some time thinking about. So just a tiny little introduction. Why are people out there interested in creating open data? What's the pressure, and what's happening now that's giving us that? Well, citizens worldwide are more and more anxious to get access to open data, and it's because of a number of reasons. One is that the tech savviness of the citizenry is unparalleled, because between smartphones and internet connectivity, we have a base of consumers of information like never before. And similarly, the governments also have the ability to share this. If it was a bunch of birth records written in a book, it was a little bit harder to get that out to people. You could make an appointment to go read the book. But today, the information is not sitting in print. It is sitting in computer systems, so it's a matter of governments wiring it up, and now citizens can get it. And the benefits are undeniable. We'll look at some of these throughout, but there's a number of anecdotal cases, and just in general, when data is made available to the mass population, it results in economic benefit for the citizenry. I'll give one tiny example. In our research, we came across somebody that was analyzing where parking tickets were being dished out. Was that in New York?
Yeah.
And so they realized there's this one hotspot that accounted for a huge amount of the parking tickets. They took a look, and it was really because there was bad signage. And so the city was bold enough to actually stop that revenue stream and go and put better signage in, all because somebody looked at open data. And I guess you could argue that maybe the people that were being ticketed before now have that money to spend on something a little more productive, perhaps.
And they were fast as well. They did it in a few weeks. So,
yes.
Impressive.
So these are just one tiny example. So the idea is that innovations can happen. We're going to talk about hackathons where people gather to do stuff with open data and produce apps that allow just better decisions and better insights into our cities and institutions.
And that's Henry II who invented the jury, kind of the first show of moving power from government to citizen, and it's kind of an extension of that with open data.
In fact, actually, we just recently passed the initial, or the 800th anniversary of the Magna Carta.
Right,
which, for those of us, at least that are still British citizens, is a significant document. Really, that document affected the Western world incredibly, and parts of that document as well were about shifting the power from the central government to the citizenry. Slowly but surely.
Yeah, it's good to see.
Couple definitions of open data, but the basic premise is that it's free and it's public, and then you can start to do stuff with it, build value on top of it.
Exactly.
And who are the audiences? Well, of course, citizens, researchers, and developers, and really those three groups end up having a great varied interest in open data, and all of them are able to do more when that data is available to them in easy to get at ways.
Yeah, and I think citizens, they might not want a CSV file. They might just want to ask a question like, hey, I'm moving house to this area, what's the traffic like in this area, what's the collision data in this area, how safe are the streets? So they might want to kind of ask higher level questions as well, so we can look at addressing that in the presentation.
So yeah, the who actually produces open data, and now this would be where I suspect many of you would find yourself in these. Well, you probably are guaranteed to be in one of these places, but really, Stuart, you'd say overwhelmingly today it's government.
Yeah, I mean mostly we've seen government shift, and all levels of government, federal and state and local, so they're all engaged in open data, and some of it's to do with the fact that they're legally obliged to actually do so now, especially in Europe as well. So. But interestingly, the kind of NGOs and intergovernmental organisations, they've seen some big victories as well on using open data. The recent earthquake in Nepal.
Yes.
So they did, I think it was, they mapped 110,000 buildings and 13,000 roads, did the open source community within 48 hours. And so using that data, they could basically get the relief and the aid to people as quickly and as efficiently as possible.
Yeah.
So they're seeing a shift and the use of open data as well.
Yes, I know there's freedom of information inquiries that governments are obliged to fulfill. Of course, those can be expensive if you're doing them manually or one-off, and that's another argument for using an open data platform such as the ones we're going to be looking today. Exactly. Just cut off all that busy work and get the people that want this information, that information very quickly.
Yeah.
Private companies starting to do some open data types of things. Sometimes they throw it out there for people to see what insights might be gained.
Yeah.
Some people have talked about Tesla open sourcing patents is not really open data, but it's a form, or it's a recognition that by making things available to the public, that there can be commercial benefit as well. So
yeah, and I think we might see more transparency in supply lines and things like that. Just the citizens and consumers are starting to expect to know where things came from. So I think we'll see big growth in this area.
Right.
And then academic institutions, I mean, this is a big one actually, but we're not going to really touch on it too much. The main thing is really that they need to start sharing research data more, and there's going to be mandates in the EU, directives in the EU that are going to push them to do this. But we've already seen what happens when academia shares things. The Human Genome Project, that was all an open collaboration, and the cost of mapping the human genome went from millions of dollars down to hundreds of dollars. So we need to see more instances of things like that happen.
Yes. So a couple of stories that we are going to tell about looking back in time. This is one that my friend Brian Timoney from the Timoney Group, the consulting GIS group in the Denver area, pointed out during his address to Phosphor-G a few years ago. But basically, during the big hurricane that hit New York, the infrastructure, the own IT infrastructure of New York City, basically went under siege.
Yeah, it just
couldn't handle it. And so they ended up sharing the kind of evacuation routes via PDF, hosted on Tumblr.
Yeah.
So it feels like, nothing against Tumblr or PDF particularly, but in terms of getting people actionable public economically valuable data, we might want to be able to do better than Tumblr and PDF.
Yeah, and interestingly, during that time, others came out and started providing maps. So Esri provided a map, Google Maps provided a map, and all of these maps kind of did what they, needed them to, but not quite.
Yeah.
So they learned quite a lot from that, and I think from that, things were learned. So it was a good example.
Right. So thanks, Brian, for sharing that story. And so that's one. And then another one, we're kind of picking on New York a little bit, but I think at the end we can tell some success stories from New York because they really are becoming a leader. But the idea was that the New York Police Department was releasing collision data in only a PDF.
Monthly PDF drop, yeah.
And there is, from a hearing that we found when we dug in, there was some testimony that kind of it felt like they were intentionally trying to make the data hard to work with.
They were worried about what people would do with the data and what they'd see in the data.
Right. But some citizens, or one in particular, banded together and made a scraper tool. Go take a peek at that. It's kind of quite funny. And so basically, it's a tool that you could use that would grind through the PDF and give you the data in something far more useful.
It's a geocoded CSV, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's an idea where you kind of can't underestimate the ingenuity of the citizenry to come up with something like that. But so anyway, now today that data is in a much more machine accessible way via the Socrata platform, which we're going to talk about.
Yeah, so it's great now. You can go and download the data. It's updated, I think, daily.
Yeah.
It's a different world, to be honest with you.
And again, you get more eyeballs on this kind of data. It's amazing what can be done. I know, actually, you were with me in Edmonton on the FME World Tour, and we saw some analysis of collision locations being done that literally is going to save lives and injuries as a result of that work. So again, you just can't underestimate the value at making this kind of stuff available to a broad audience. You never know what's going to come of it.
Exactly.
So we'll just whip through a few as we look at these different data portals. Let's take a look at a couple of ingredients. One of them is asking the question, how often is the data being updated? And this is an interesting one because it kind of gets at some of the approaches as you look at these different platforms. Where do they fit in terms of these things? And so
I mean, probably the biggest focus for me is providing your data as a published feed. So this could be an API or something like an RSS or GRSS. So people can, rather than having to download the data every day, they can just make an API call and pull the data down as and when they need it.
Right. And by doing that, you avoid this issue that I've downloaded the Excel spreadsheet 3 days ago, and I'm working with that, and it's 3 days old.
Yeah.
So anytime, I mean, I know SAFE is kind of in the business of making files to some degree, but anytime people are grabbing files, they're taking a copy, and so it can be drifting out of date. So that's the advantage of these feeds or API approaches.
Exactly, yeah. And the other is connect your open data directly to the master database. So you can think about some of these as we're moving through all the solutions later on. But if you don't have to duplicate your master data set in the open data platform, then obviously there's an advantage there because it's a direct connect, so you can keep things up to date much easier.
Right, and so there's pluses and minuses. You get the up to date, but of course you also shift the load onto your operational system. So you have to work through that to figure out what the right balance is for you, but there can be, for at least some data sets, great value in there being no lag at all between what's in your master system and what the public can see.
Exactly, yeah. And then finally, you can use FME to sync your master data store with your open data repository. And actually, lots of people do this.
Yes.
Whether your data's in Socrata, in Esri, whether it's just on an FTP.
CKAN.
Yeah, CKAN as well. Which is just GeoJSON or JSON. So, we'll see that a little bit later on. We'll show you how that works.
So the idea here is you try desperately not to have this be a manual process.
Exactly.
And you configure something and then set it loose so that it runs automatically every 30 minutes or whatever frequency you want.
Exactly. You can use FME Server to schedule the task.
Right. And when you get into that kind of issue, the question is, are you doing a complete copy every time, which can get a little expensive, or do you do a more clever update of deltas?
Exactly.
And so all of these things are considerations when you're looking at deploying one of these solutions. What's going to be your mechanism for keeping that data up to date that's out there? Yeah, if you're into spatial world, you got to think about coordinate systems, and here we're showing a map. I don't know if people are used to looking at the world in this way, but you need to think about, are you presenting the data or making it available in a way that's able to be used most naturally? And so for high-end GIS-y kinds of data sets, you probably want to let people get it in the coordinate system of their choosing.
Yeah, I mean, I know when I came over here, people use more of the global data sets. They seem to use WGS and spherical Mercator, but in England we really just use the local British National Grid a lot more. So I guess we're a smaller country, so you have to balance up, giving the local or the global projection on offer.
Right. So for example, every state in the U.S. has several state planes, but usually there's a particular system that makes sense for the whole state. If it's a state only, then focusing on that, or even in various cities, will be very, very localized, so they should be considering that. However, if they want the data to be easily used with web mapping platforms, then things like spherical Mercator lets you, if that's your system of choice, that lets you splash that on top of your Google Map, your Bing Map, without any trouble. And of course, along the language of KML.
And GPS as well.
And GPS is a reasonable one as well. So definitely some considerations for those that are doing spatial stuff. But open data isn't really only about spatial at all.
No.
And so it's actually overwhelmingly not spatial. But if you got spatial, you need to consider these issues. Quality, of course, is a huge issue, and we've got lots of our customers that spend a lot of their time thinking about quality. Afterwards, you'll get these slides. You can click on these links. If you want to, you can print a whole poster of the data quality spatial validation. There's our
it's a checklist, isn't it?
Checklist, and down at the bottom here, you can see that giant poster that people could look at. Thinking about data quality, you really want to be thinking about these things before you put data up, that's for sure. And then as well, our friends at DataPress shared with us an interesting site called csvlint.io. If you're dealing with CSV files, then you can go, why don't you take a quick peek at that, Stuart? It's basically an online checker for CSV files. Upload your CSV and hit validate, and then it has a bunch of additional ways you can really specify more carefully what it should be validating. So anyway, interesting resources, but really you can't underestimate the importance of ensuring quality if you're going to be sharing data. You don't want to be sharing crap data, basically.
No, yeah, and as we shift more to real-time data as well, there's going to be even more challenges around doing QA on actually live data streams, so that would be an interesting problem.
Yes. And now we get into what mechanisms, and again, a lens through which you can evaluate these platforms are going to be showing.
Yeah.
So Stuart and I are big fans of API-based data sharing, which allows apps to be written on top. So if you're doing that, really it's JSON or GeoJSON for the spatial stuff that you should be doing. And so really that's an important thing. Otherwise, hard to knock the venerable CSV file off of its plateau as something that at least machines can work with.
Yeah, and humans as well. I mean, we can open CSV in Google Sheets or Excel or just a text thing. So. And
I know that there's a movement in Europe trying desperately to get rid of shapefiles as I guess lingo franca or whatever. But you look at that Easter egg we got at the bottom. Those are usage stats from our product FME, and shape is the overall heavyweight. It's hard to deny that shapefiles are absolutely ubiquitous in terms of being able to be read and supported by anything. So if you're only doing one spatial thing, pretty much we'd say you should do shapefile. You look at our supplementary ones, of course, Excel spreadsheets are the shapefile of non-spatial data, and then if you really want to get more rigorous, XML is a good choice. On the spatial side, there's a lot of open data use is done by folks that ultimately want to do it in AutoCAD. They're contractors or planners, people that are kind of building subdivisions, this sort of thing.
Yeah, architects.
AutoCAD. Of course, higher-end Esri people would want the file geodatabase. That's a popular one. It's got a free API, widely supported. In Europe, the GML side of things, very popular because of the more complex data models that can be conveyed through it. And KML, again, laying things on top of Google Earth is always pleasurable for folks.
Yeah, yeah.
And map info consistently being a strong format in our usage stats
yeah, you
out
can
there.
See it there, yeah.
Yeah.
I think the key thing we've tried to do here is always, especially on the suggested, is have a machine-readable and a human-readable format.
Yeah.
You always need the two there. I think that's the key thing.
Yeah, yeah. So think about that as you evaluate these different solutions we'll be walking through. So now we're going to look at 9 solutions alphabetically. And here they are. We'll take a quick look at them, and if anybody notices something odd, they should let a little question, and we'll check it out at the end.
Yeah.
But there's the list, and I think now we'll actually dig in to these different solutions. So we'll start alphabetically at the top of the list with ArcGIS Open Data. So what would you say there, Stuart?
So you know, ArcGIS Open Data is a great one to look at if you already have either ArcGIS Server or ArcGIS Online. Basically, it takes a matter of minutes to turn this open data portal on if you already have your data in either of these setups. So if you're an Esri customer, then you know it's just worth taking a look at this. It's very nice because you don't have to code to turn it on. You can do advanced configuration and alter things using code, but you can also just use wizards. So you know, it's more of a data catalog than it doesn't have advanced visualization, but it's a very powerful data catalog with a great search option, and you can see all of the supported data types here. But really, you want to focus on this if your data already resides within the Esri world. So we'll take a little dive into actually a portal that we turned on that Laura kindly did for us, and she said it took a few minutes for her to turn this portal on and create it. But yeah, it's a strong data catalog with good metadata support, and the data can be downloaded in various different formats and WGS84.
And as Stuart's firing that up, I'll just mention as well, one of the things I didn't realize when we began this work was the fact that you can federate other things into the portal. So not only is it for the things that are hosted inside of ArcGIS Online, but if you were running an ArcGIS server on premises, you can publish services into here. Yeah. And via the open source COOP project that some of the Esri folks have made available, you can actually put things like Socrata data into here, and we know of some customers that have put CKAN data into here as well. So it's a federated situation. If people have questions, we do have Andrew Stauffer from Esri on the line, and I'll ask some of the folks at SAFE that are looking at stuff. You can pass stuff along to Andrew and get people's responses there. If you have questions along the way, please do chime in, and we'll look at them as we go. But anyway, take it away, Stuart, as you look at this. This is our SAFE software.
So this is our SAFE software portal, and it's clear. To be clear, this is just the out-of-the-box settings. So it looks quite good, but it's kind of generic. We haven't done any customization. This took a few minutes to turn on. Our data is in ArcGIS Online. So if I want to search, I can search, and it shows me where the data set is. Obviously, a strong emphasis on geo, and if I then click on the data set, I can view the metadata associated with the data. I can even dive into the actual table and look at the tabular data, and I can do very simple filtering as well and sorting and things like that. So, it's a nice experience. I can download the data set in a variety of different formats. You can download the entire data set, or if it's a huge data set, you can filter and then do a download.
And you could open it directly in ArcGIS if that's what you were using as well.
Yes, you can, yeah. If you want to do charting, again, there's some nice visualizations. It does it very quickly, and you can do some simple configurations to quickly view and interact with the data set. You can also view in this top map. You can just dig down if you want to look at the map in a spatial view.
Right. So to be clear, folks, what we did is we scraped a little bit of the open data from the city of Vancouver to put in here as a sample, and this is where the food vendors are sitting around in the Vancouver area, presumably today.
Yes. Yeah. So what I want to just show now actually is I just want to show how we got the data into ArcGIS Online. Because the process we used FME to do this, but it's kind of applicable to all of these solutions. We're not going to show this every time. We just want to show it once in terms of how we got the data in. So the nice thing about this workflow is it's a change-only update. So we're reading the features in from ArcGIS Online, so the features as they are in ArcGIS Online. That's typical. Done this many times, it hasn't crashed, just bear with me a second.
Right.
And then what we're going to do is we read in our current data set. So this is our new data, our updated data set. And then what we do is essentially we do some attribute cleanup. We reproject the data, because the data has to be in a certain projection to load into ArcGIS Online.
Yeah.
And then we have this update detector transformer, which is a very useful transformer. And what it essentially does is, feature by feature, it compares the new data with the existing data.
Right.
And then we apply the updated, inserted, and deleted data against the new ArcGIS Online data set.
The feature service.
Yeah, the feature service. So, this could be switched out for any of them, Socrata, CKAN. We have a Socrata reader and writer, but we just want to kind of just get this in your head in terms of the update process and how we see the sync between your master data set and the open data platforms.
Right. And so again, this is going to ArcGIS Online. If folks already were Esri customers, then that would be completely able to be done without any of our stuff.
Exactly,
but if you wanted to integrate other data in there, which is what this case was, in this case actually we're pulling the KML file off of the Vancouver data set.
Directly off the Vancouver website.
Yeah.
Because we can read URLs now.
So it's coming off and we'll look at the Vancouver data set or their site in a minute. But that's how that all works. So that's cool.
Yeah. Okay, so that's a good overview of Esri.
And again, there's lots of resources online. If people, we'll be sending links out afterwards, but folks can look at this. You'll also get these slides with these links as well.
And there's an ebook as well, actually, that goes into a lot more detail about each solution.
Yes. So the second one we thought we'd look at is people that want to just use the amazing power of Amazon Web Services and effectively create their own solution on top of that.
Right.
Now you got to get your hands a bit more dirty if you're doing this approach.
Yeah.
But it can be quite impressive what can be done, and we'll look particularly at an example where one of the customers used WordPress together with our FME hosted FME Cloud.
Yes.
And all of the power of Amazon to build something. So.
Yes, I mean, the nice thing about Amazon is it's very, very competent at storing your open data in a very secure, fault-tolerant way. So, we have S3, which is Amazon Simple Storage, which is amazing at storing things like LiDAR data and raster data imagery. It's a very, very cheap way to store huge volumes of data very, very in a stable manner.
Right. In fact, I think all of the Landsat 8 data is now in there in a free and open way.
Yeah.
And I know that Planet Labs is going to be using S3 for all of their scenes where they're going to be capturing the entire Earth every day. So that gives you an idea of the magnitude of S3.
And we have 9 nines of reliability. It's kind of unparalleled.
Yeah.
You can't do that on premises. And then we also have RDS, which is another great service, which is their relational database service. And few people might know this, but we have PostGIS on there, and we also have SQL Server Spatial as well.
Yeah.
So this is a fantastic way for you to host your open data in a highly stable, scalable, reliable database. And it takes all of the pain away from you. Amazon kind of do the maintenance, the patching, all that side.
The backing up and everything else is just dealt with.
So it's a little bit technical to get going with, but once you start leveraging the power of Amazon, it reduces your work in the long run.
Right.
And then what we do is we FME Cloud's the data mover. So you're going to build a web front end. This is the architecture, but you have a website essentially that in this case is on WordPress. And the request is going to come through WordPress saying, I want this data. And FME Cloud then extracts the data in real time from the database. So that's the nice thing here. We're not duplicating the data. We're going straight to the master database. We're pulling the data out of the database, and then in real time, we're reprojecting the data, and we are translating the data into the right format and delivering it to the user. So let me show you a little demo, which is our friends down in Arkansas, the state of Arkansas. So this is their open data catalog, and this runs on WordPress, which is sat on an Amazon web server. And you can see they have all of their open data on here. and you can add this data to the cart. It's quite nice. This is very good if you have a lot of very technical GIS data. You can look at the the metadata associated with the data. But then the nice thing is you can have as many data sets as you want, and it's like a basket, like you're on Amazon or something. And then in bulk you can proceed to download. And then what you can do is, this is where we start to leverage the power of FME. You can choose your clipping area, so I can maybe click by county. You can also, there's many ways you can clip. You can choose your format. Here are all the formats. So we've got our GeoJSON and even PDF in there as well.
Yeah.
And then we can choose our projections. So again, they've got state, plane, and national projections.
Right.
And then I just enter my email, click or download data, and the data is now being extracted from the PostGIS database in real time by FME Cloud. It's being reprojected, and then FME is going to send an email to my inbox with the data.
Yeah. And if it was an image that you were getting, it would be being pulled out of S3, perhaps clipped and reformatted, and then sent down to you as well.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah. So you're not going to do this if you're a small outfit with one guy. This is kind of more of an enterprise deployment.
Yeah.
But it's definitely quite a powerful model if you have very complex GIS data that you want to get out there.
Yes.
Okay. So next is CKAN. So CKAN is, well, it's an open source data portal, and I'd go far to say it's probably the most popular open source data portal there is. And I think the reason I say that is just because of the sites that are actually using this technology. So we have data.gov, data.gov.uk, data.gov.ca. So these are huge federal, national open data portals, and they're all running on CKAN or flavors of CKAN. So it's a very, very good site for, it's more of a data catalog again than data visualization. It's very good at publishing and sharing data, and also it has a very good search mechanism. The other nice thing, it has 300 open source data management extensions, and these extensions are always evolving. But it's more aimed at much larger organizations, I'd say. You need to host it yourself. You need to configure and deploy it yourself, so you do need a team around this.
Right.
But it's very easy to get data in there. It has a rich JSON API for loading data in.
Yeah.
And you can also do it through the web browser as well. And some customers have actually even integrated FME to extend their projection and format support as well. These are actually our friends in the city of Surrey where Safe Software is based.
And they spoke about a year ago at our user conference here, and that video is online. If people want to see how that works, they can check that out. But yeah, again, as we're starting to look through these solutions, there's a difference there for folks to kind of think through about how much work and how much of an IT infrastructure are you going to have yourself versus how much are you just paying somebody else to host this.
Yeah. And
every organization is going to have to kind of make their own decision in that spectrum.
Yes, and I think the reason why the large federal open data sites have gone to this, one of the reasons anyway, is because it's quite good as CKAN at doing the so-called data harvesting. So, the data.gov, they don't actually own a lot of their data. But what they need to do is they need to tap in the data from NOAA, from the Department of Agriculture, from USGS. So this is it's a big kind of data federation. It's federating the data into one catalog that people can search in a meaningful way. So I'm on data.gov here, filtering by agriculture, and you can see I've got Department of Agriculture data, I've got NOAA, I've got USGS. So if I go on and I can look at the metadata, but I'm being pushed to an external resource. So this is why they have so many data sets in here. But it's very good using their so-called data harvesting plugin. Okay, so I'm going to talk a little bit more about CKAN actually, but via other solutions. So DataPress are our friends over in England.
Yes.
And what they've done is basically taken CKAN, and the first thing they're doing is they're removing the barriers of hosting for you. So they're going to do all the hosting, they're going to do the patching, they're going to look after everything for you. the deployment takes seconds, not hours or days. The other thing they've done is they've integrated WordPress with it.
Yeah.
WordPress is the largest content management system in the world. So what that means is it allows you to write your blog posts, design your web pages, and leverage all of the themes that are on WordPress. There must be thousands of themes on plugins. The Google Analytics plugin, and there's thousands of them. So it allows you to not only use CKAN and host CKAN, but it allows you to basically build a website and build a web application without knowing how to code. So let's take a look at this one a little bit. They've kindly stood up a site for us here, and so this is again, it's test data. And if I go to data sets, it looks very like the data.gov one that we just saw. So this is from my neck of the woods, Leeds. Okay. So again, you can click on here and you can interact and see all the data, see the licensing. But the key thing here is if you go in actions, two things. Firstly, it's very, very easy to add data sets and to modify articles, and this is using the kind of standard CKAN
So you're
tools.
showing now because you're logged in.
I'm logged in, yeah.
So this is an administrator's view to things.
Correct, yeah. So this is how you would create the metadata and upload your data. There's also an API to do this. But the nice thing about this now here is if I go to WordPress admin, this is how, as a non-technical guy, I can go and I can write blog posts, and I don't need to be a strong coder to do this. I'm using the WordPress themes, and I can just use the WYSIWYG editors. So this is a nice use case if you want to leverage CKAN, but you just don't have the bandwidth. You're not a massive organization.
Or you just don't want to dedicate the resources to it.
Exactly, yeah.
So, and again, our friends set up that Interopolis site in just a couple of hours for us to play with.
Exactly.
So thanks very much, DataPress friends. So yeah, an interesting contrast. CKAN, you'd be downloading the pieces, but then you're signing up to kind of dealing with it yourself.
Yeah.
In the case of DataPress, they're looking after that for you, and you're paying for the service. So interesting dichotomy.
And again, this is, and just to touch on this, DKAN is another derivative of CKAN, and this is an open source Drupal plugin. And there is a cloud-hosted version available as well. But Drupal obviously is it's an open source content management system. And so if you're already in Drupal, or if you're a PHP, if you use PHP a lot, which is what Drupal's built on, this is worth taking a look. And as I say, there is a open source version you can get off GitHub and do it all yourself, or there is a cloud-hosted version available now as well, so in a similar way to WordPress, but just using DKAN. And data.gov.uk actually use Drupal as well.
So I think that we're maybe close to halfway done our tour. Why don't we stop for just a second and take a look at some of the questions that have been coming in. So first of all, I notice we have Chris from Socrata is online as well. So when people have questions about Socrata, they can ask us there. And Chris points out that during that New York time, they also provided a map too.
Great. Yeah.
So there was many of them. Some folks are asking, hey, why aren't we talking more about standards like WFS?
Yeah, I mean, the standards are often actually there in a lot of the solutions. We're not talking about it in our feedback and with our products. We've not seen a huge uptake in WMS and WFS these days. But I mean, I think a lot of the websites provide these endpoints. But what's getting more popular, I think, rather than these WFS endpoints, is a more generic API.
Right.
So the thing is about an API is you can use GeoJSON when it's spatial, but when it's not spatial, it's still there, and it's a great tool for delivering data. But the trouble is with WFS is it's tied to the geospatial element. But most of these portals are, there's some spatial element to it, but they need the tabular output as well.
Right. Someone asked, what about GeoPackage as a format? GeoPackage is a new, actually I think it's endorsed by the OGC as well, a single data format that can carry imagery, vector data, as well as just non-spatial. It's really a SQLite database.
Right.
And so, yeah, we love the geo package. The problem is, at this moment, not a lot of the packages one will actually use to work with data work with it.
Okay.
So that's also, when you get into this, like I don't wake up in the morning and say, boy, do I ever love shapefiles.
No.
You know, I don't have a particular love on for them, but I'm realistic in saying just about any software that somebody has that looks at maps will do shapefiles. As much as I don't care for some of the antiquated, you know, DBF technology being used to carry attributes around, the fact is it works everywhere. GeoPackage is dramatically more sophisticated and wonderful from a computing science point of view, but today not every, or hardly any actually, software supports it.
Yes.
We do in FME, and we'll continue to do so, and we hope that it catches fire. But anyway, that's my little speech on that. Somebody asked, is ArcGIS Online free? Well, it is and it isn't. If you are an Esri customer already, then you have an ArcGIS Online account.
Yes.
But if you're not an Esri customer, then you have to pay to become one.
Yeah.
So so it's not free. But once you are an ArcGIS customer, the open data part is no extra cost.
It's free to turn on. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So you might as well give it a go.
Yes. Someone wants to know the URL to Coop, and I know Andrew is online, and if you can give us the URL to Coop, and then we can maybe share that out with everybody. Then Bob, our friend from Indiana, is that where Bob is?
Oh, I'm not sure. I've met Bob before. But
yes. Sorry, Bob, I can't remember where you're from, but we'll try to get you that. Several people asking, hey, what's the deal with that update detector transformer?
It's a custom transformer, yes. So is it 2015? It might have been there in 2014, but your best bet is with 2015, and you'll pull it down from the FME store.
Right. So you just have to type update detector on the canvas, and down it will come. It's built on top of the change detector.
Yes.
It's really a change detector that understands data keys. Could FME Cloud be configured to cache responses so we don't hit the database every time?
Not FME Cloud directly, but you can configure that within Amazon.
And that's what we've seen people do.
Yeah.
You could add more sophisticated stuff in FME Cloud too, but normally we haven't gotten into that business.
No, yeah, we usually do that a tier above.
Yeah. And I think somebody has given the Coop URL already, so that's great. And oh yeah, our Socrata friends mentioning that they do both JSON and GeoJSON
Great.
as feeds as well. Let's see. Oh, Bruce Harold points out that there's free public accounts in ArcGIS Online. So in that perspective, it is free, but you can't use those. Bruce also points out to do an open data portal.
Right.
So you'd have to step up to another angle. And Bob is from North Dakota. So that's good. And there's the URL from Andrew for GitHub. So I'll just ask Stephanie to just chat out that URL to although actually it's github.com/coopjs, so that's pretty easy.
Yeah, Google GitHub Coop probably.
Yes. And here's one that's asking, boy oh boy, Andrew from Esri, we're going to have to pass this on to you. Is ArcGIS Online free for a year from Esri if you were an existing Google Earth Pro customer? And I don't want to step into that one. It's a great question. Brad, you deserve a sport for asking that. Brad's a longtime good customer from Edmonton. And so, Andrew, you can tell us, can you use ArcGIS Online for free for a year if you were an old Google Earth Pro customer? We'll wait for Andrew to say that. And with that, we'll go back to our regularly scheduled programming and talk about this is a dark horse, an odd kind of thing, but folks do it. And so take it away, Stuart.
Yeah, everyone likes the word free. Some of these are, maybe they're not quite free, minimal cost, but basically what we've seen over the past few years, people kind of getting data out there in what I might think is kind of an unconventional way. So the first one is people have been using like cloud storage, so Google Drive, Dropbox, FTP, and they put all of their data up on the cloud storage site. And then what they do is they build a website, very simple web page, and the web page just points the URL to the cloud storage. So I'll show you a quick example of that. The City of Vancouver data catalog. This is all of their open data, downloaded in a variety of formats. But if you actually hover here, you might not be able to see it, but in the bottom left corner, basically these files are hosted on an FTP site.
Okay.
And what they do is they use FME to extract data from there, database, the master database, and load it up onto the FTP at kind of a regular schedule. So you could put your data in Google Drive or Dropbox or Amazon S3 or any cloud-based file storage, and then just build a very simple website to allow people to download it. So this is better if you have static data sets, and data sets that don't change very much. So let's just go back to here. The other one which is interesting is people have been using GitHub as well. So the thing is about GitHub is, firstly, it's within the open source community. It's very well recognized kind of in terms of usability. People know how to use it. They know how to interact with it. But the nice thing about GitHub is it's very, very good at enabling collaboration. So if you have an open data set that's ever evolving that you want the community to provide input on, then GitHub might be a good place to start. You can upload your data to a public repository for free on GitHub, and then it has a lot of tools to do, change requests and allow people to collaborate and update and comment and talk about the data. And we've seen that with several of our customers. This is the city of Rioja in southern Spain, where you get all your wine from, and they've got all of their data up here on GitHub. So interestingly, if you post a GeoJSON file up to GitHub, GitHub actually renders it automatically in a map. So it's I wouldn't say a quick and dirty way of getting data up there, but if you're a small outfit and you just want to get data up there, it's a very good way. And you can click on history, and for this specific file you can see all the change requests. You can fork the data, work on the data, edit the data and merge it back in. So that's just something to bear in mind if you want to get data out very, very quickly, and let's be honest, the data's got to be relatively simple to support this as well. Okay, so that's kind of the free options. I mean, yeah, there's still going to be some work to do there if you want to provide a polished end web interface. So I've shown you the FTP and GitHub demo. So next, I'll just briefly talk about Junar. So Junar is a cloud open data platform, and then they focus on analysis and visualization, but also ease of use. So Junar is a SaaS platform, so again, you don't have to worry about hosting this. You don't have to do any of the configuration or anything like that. You just focus on your data. And Junar are very big in, I don't know if you've got anyone from Central or South America and the Spanish-speaking countries, but you can see the government of Chile are using it.
And the Bay Area.
And the Bay Area as well, yeah.
Well, I know Sacramento. Our friends in Sacramento might not call themselves the Bay Area, but when you live in Vancouver, Sacramento's the Bay Area.
Right, yeah. It seems close when we drove it the other week.
Yes.
So Junar's one to look at as well. The other one is Open Datasoft. So Open Datasoft, they start to think about things a little bit differently. So these last two, Open Datasoft and Socrata, they think about data more in terms of kind of, it's more of a platform. Rather than just having a data catalog, they want to provide a way for you to really interact with that data and visualize the data. And why is that? Well, sometimes citizens come to a site and they don't want to download a CSV file or look at 6 million records. They just want to ask a question and quickly look at the data. So they have very strong visualization and analysis tools on this platform. It also has very good search. They use Elasticsearch underneath. This is definitely worth taking a look at. It's a very modern site with a great look and feel, especially good support on mobile as well. So if you want more advanced visualization, then take a look at the Open Datasoft guys.
So that brings us to our closer.
Yeah, our closer. Yeah.
Because S turns out to be the end of the alphabet as far as these solutions that we're looking at today. And so we should say just a few words. We've worked closely with our friends at Socrata for measured in years now, and have a lot of support in our product for reading and writing. And it's worth spending some time on Socrata's site to understand their approach to open data, which is really around this concept that data is not just even to be delivered out to people, but it should be viewed more as a utility upon which infrastructure and value can be created.
Exactly, yes, yeah. So, you can go and you can download the data as a CSV file. But as we'll see in a minute, they have new products called Data Lens, where you can really start to interrogate the data. Some of the data sets are huge. They have 5.5 million records.
Yeah.
So I mean, what are you going to do to derive
You don't really want
intelligence?
that. You don't want that in your own Excel spreadsheet.
No, exactly. So yeah, it's easy to publish data to Socrata. You have a web UI, they have a desktop sync tool, they have an API, you have FME as well with a reader and writer.
We've built on top of that API.
Exactly, yeah, we leverage their API, and then here are all the formats that you can upload as well. But I think we should just get stuck in and show them around at an
couple of sites,
yeah.
Again, thanks to some of our friends from Socrata, pointed us at a couple of interesting sites that we could show to folks. So here's the Chicago folks.
So this is, the city of Chicago, and so this is all of the crime data in Chicago from 2001. So note at the bottom here, there's 5.8 million records in it.
That's a lot of crime.
It's a lot of crime. The other thing about Socrata is when you load the page, the data's front and center. The metadata is there, but they throw you straight into the data.
Right.
So they have a great set of filtering tools that allows you to, do conditional formatting, to really start to narrow down your data to get exactly what you want out of the data set.
And to be clear, we're not administrators or anything else on this.
No.
We are just the average Joe public right now looking at this site.
Exactly. Yeah, you can add conditional filters. These kind of things are very, very powerful for narrowing down your data. So this is really if you want to just extract data for a specific time period or in a specific ward or a specific type. You can narrow the data set down very, very easily. They also have strong export tools using their APIs. You can download the data in a variety of different formats. And so yeah, that's great support there as well on the format side of things. The other thing is the visualization is very, very strong. So they have visualization tools built in here to this view, where you can create various different charts, and you can even do map overlays and things like that to view isopress and things like that, and different views of the data from a spatial perspective. But what we're going to show you today is one of their newer products, which is the Data Lens experience. So this is thinking about this as a citizen now coming to the site. Again, this is just public facing. This is a different view of the data that allows people to look and gain insights without downloading the data and doing anything themselves. So, you can see here, one might conclude that crime's dropping in Chicago, or the number of police are dropping. That's looking.
It also,
at the crime.
I don't know if it's Thanksgiving or Christmas, but it definitely there's a time when the crime takes a break for a few days.
Maybe it's February. Maybe it's just cold.
Well, that is true. It's in February. It's Valentine's Day.
Yeah, maybe they take a day off. Primary types of, they're digging down into splitting the data out by type, and then down here you can even start to dig into the data by different wards. So this is kind of seeing the evolution of open data from just being a data catalog to being more of a data visualization and allowing the end user to interact and inspect the data.
Yes, we saw, it's interesting, the two major platforms, both ArcGIS Online and Socrata, having the getting more and more power baked into them in terms of analysis.
Yeah, I mean, for example, this is crimes, but say collision accidents.
Yes.
If I cycle to work, I have 3 bridges to choose from. As a citizen, which is the safest bridge?
Right.
Well, I should be able to interrogate that data without downloading a CSV file, and I think this is the beginnings of allowing me to answer those types of questions.
Yeah.
Okay, so anything else to add on Socrata?
Well, I think we won't go do it, but there's also versions of this for where does my money go? Right.
Yeah. That's kind of interesting. Providing transparency around federal and local budgets, so you can actually see where the money's being spent in terms of categorization. And open data is definitely expanding in terms of the footprint. It's no longer just about GIS data and opening data up at a very low level. It's much more extensive in terms of what it's offering. Okay, so there's lots of demos here. I know we've seen a few questions in the comments saying, "Oh, what about this? What about that?"
Yes.
And we've just picked out 9 solutions. The ones we're familiar with. There's many more out there. So maybe we can call a few out, but you need to get on Google as well. This is not an exhaustive list. This is just the ones that we're familiar with.
Somebody asked me if Socrata is a sponsor of this webinar, and hey, sorry if we, but there's just a lot. We just are trying to highlight the things that we can in the time that we have.
Yeah.
And I know that many people will have their own favorites within there. And hey, we're sorry that we didn't spend more time on Junar. We don't have a lot of experience with it, but we invite you all to dig in yourselves on that. We basically had to show the things that we have customers using that we have better knowledge of.
Yeah.
Those are the ones, of course, that we can spend more time on. But it's worth seeing what's out there, I think, and then choosing your own and making sure that you're making an informed choice.
Yeah,
that you know. So somebody said that that according to the OGC on opengeospatial.org, SAFE doesn't implement compliant packages for the OGC geo package. So
okay.
Good for doing your homework there, Julie. I don't know why that is the case.
Yeah, I didn't even know that was there. Right.
So we need to do a little better job of pointing that out. Andrew from Esri does point out that ArcGIS Open Data is available as a WMS.
Great, okay.
And a WFS and a WCS. So those OGC standards baked into that for people that care about that.
It's still important for sure.
Absolutely. And so what else would we want to say? Let's see.
I'll just bump us on to kind of...
Yes, I'll scan the rest of the questions.
The future of open data from our maybe, let's say, narrow view of the world, but certainly from what we've done with the research in this webinar. So the first, I think, is going to be a growth in hackathons or participation and involving the citizen in leveraging the data. We've seen this to great success in New York. And I think citizens are beginning to realize, it's not a read-only society that we live in, that they can instill change on the societies that we live in. And these hackathons and participatory events are really, really good. And I think that they need to expand in scope and in terms of the larger footprint in cities. The interesting thing is technology is starting to normalize across countries now.
Yes.
With all of these different solutions that we've seen. So maybe we can start to normalize standards and so we can do city comparisons or national comparisons to compare New York with London or London to Berlin. So that's potentially something that might happen down the line as well.
And it might, that might not happen at the individual data provider level, but the citizenry.
Right.
Or academia could build layers on top.
Exactly.
That would do that.
Yeah.
And so that's because the city of Chicago might not really care to match the data model of the city of Berlin.
Yeah.
But someone else might be able to.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, maybe researchers, as you say. Focus shift on data quality, not quantity. So I think there's been a kind of a gold rush to get as much data out there as possible, get it up on open data. We need to tick boxes. We need to make sure we comply. And now I think we need to take stock a little bit and start focusing on data quality.
Yes.
Is the data set updated? Is the data set valid? Is it correct? And so I think that's a focus for the next few years as well.
And there really isn't any technology excuse anymore.
No,
you saw, we showed you 9, and if anybody was counting, there was actually 10 different options, and that's just ones that we're aware of. There are others out there, and I think a few people in the Q&A have pointed out a few ones that we weren't aware of. So there's lots of options, and actually lots of them can be done at a hosted level, so you don't hardly have to do anything in terms of your own IT resourcing to take part in these. So really, there's pretty much no excuse from that perspective to participate. Yeah. I know sometimes there are, like, I happen to know one of our customers that intentionally doesn't make any noise about their open data site because of this issue of the crime statistics.
Right.
And that's a touchy one because you may not want, there's pluses and minuses to making the crime data available, but arguably, more information in the hands of more people results in better behavior and better activity and better decisions.
I think that's what we've seen.
Yeah.
And then finally, just the open private sector, fascinates me. I think being transparent over the years to come is going to be a competitive advantage. So it will drive revenue. So, if I'm buying a pair of trainers, I will like to know the carbon footprint. I'd like to know, the supply chain and whether it's ethical and things like that. So I think providing transparency as an organisation is going to be a competitive advantage over the years to come. So. Yeah. Most people are probably government on the call, so they don't care as much about that, but I think it's an interesting sector, and so we'll see how that plays out.
And we picked on New York at the beginning, but we really should say a few words about how they are, frankly, a leader in this area.
Yeah, definitely, yeah.
And so it's great to see them providing leadership and getting enormous amounts of information out there, and a very active hackathon, very active app ecosystem around the open data in New York.
And changes been instilled in the city that resulted from open data. Yeah. I think that's the thing I've seen there is real changes have happened that citizens have instigated, and that's the impressive thing.
So we wanted to call out this organization, and you mentioned this morning, is it Tim?
Yeah, Tim Berners-Lee
is part of this Open Data Institute, the so-called ODI. That's a great website with all kinds of thought leadership around open data. So if you're interested, you can dig in more there to think about or kind of get into what's going on with open data and why and so on. So a really, really valuable website to be available or be aware of. They're, I think, behind the CSV Lint as well.
Right. Yes. Yeah. That's right. They're out in the UK. I think they're in London.
Yeah. So. All right. So just to kind of finally wrap up, somebody asks. Where does FME really come in? And somebody else asked if Socrata was a sponsor. They aren't, but you know what? Safe Software is. So I should say a few words about what FME fits in, our product fits in, because ultimately in many of these situations, there's a data move that happens from whatever the internal disparate systems are to the public-facing site. Yeah. And that's where we can add a lot of value and take away that friction, that pain in that area.
Yeah.
So that's where we would say we fit in.
Or if you want to extract directly from the database and have your data in a master database, then you can use FME Server to do these kind of real-time data extraction runs using our services.
Yeah. So I think with that, I don't think there's too many other things. We're at the end of our time. You know what? We'll stay around to answer more questions, but I think with that we'll bid you all adieu. Many people asked, are the slides going to be available? Is the recording available?
Yeah.
Yes.
And the ebook.
There's an ebook that you'll get a reference to that has a lot more detail on a lot of these things. But I encourage you, follow the links. We did brush over a few of the things like Junar and Open Data Soft. Go and dig in yourselves. Yeah. I know that our friends at Socrata, DataPress, Esri are happy to answer questions, and you know, there's a lot of commitment to this initiative by a lot of these organizations.
Yeah.
And so you as potential customers are in a wonderful spot because you have people really working hard to give you what you want and what you need.
Yeah, and SAFE are willing to answer questions about the Geostore example as well.
Yeah, if there's questions around data moving, actually one other thing about FME is you don't have to, sometimes you have more information in your local systems than you want to publish.
Right.
Very easy to knock out columns, rename things, and so on. That's part of our value as well. So anyway, we'll be sending you all that stuff. And I think with that, we'll bid you farewell. Stuart and I will hang around and maybe look at the questions. And actually, we'll probably leave the audio going here as we dig in a little bit. But thanks so much for tuning in, and goodbye. And with that, we'll transition to just looking at a few of the questions. Please do stay on if you want to keep on going. Oh, somebody asked if what our view of Inspire was. You know, I was just at the Inspire conference.
Right.
It isn't necessarily an open data initiative as much as it is a harmonization initiative.
Yes.
It is definitely having success. It's a very detailed and complex data model.
Right.
So that is when you try to craft a data model that however many countries are in the EU.
Right. Oh, don't ask me. A lot.
It could be N-1 soon if Greece gets kicked out. But nonetheless, when you try to make something that accommodates all of that, that is a huge undertaking, and in many ways slows down the progress because, you know, if I said to the city of Edmonton, you can't make your data available until we have agreement from all the cities in North America, that's going to slow some things down. Now, the advantage would be that once we do have agreement, wow, now we can do this interoperation. But anyway, the Inspire guys are making progress. Definitely, data sets are being made available. You you need to have fairly complex tools to work with it, and FME is being used all over to help with that, and we're glad to be part of that. But the truth is, you pretty much need something like an FME or pretty high intensity
it's a
tools,
complex data model, isn't it?
To work with. So yeah, we support Inspire. We've done an enormous amount of work at SAFE, and we know a lot of brilliant people are working on it, and some results are starting to happen, but it's kind of a different approach entirely to the more lightweight, nimble approaches that we were covering here today.
Yeah,
so they each have a place for sure.
Yeah.
So let's see, what else? Wow, somebody says, thank you very much, Cam, says without FME they wouldn't be able to deliver their open data solutions. 90% of their data sets go through FME.
Well, there we go, yeah.
So thanks very much. Let's see. Spatial data infrastructure, somebody's asking about. Again, our friends from Socrates still here. People asking for the slides and the videos. And what else? Oh yeah, we forgot to focus on a couple of the open data things in Germany.
Right, yeah.
Saxony has an amazing data site. One of the angles as well that I know some of our friends from some of the vendors, I won't say who because it might be NDA and I can't remember, but I know that, let's put it this way, many years ago at an FME user conference, the famous Jason Birch did his crawlable open data. Do you remember that?
No, I don't know.
Maybe you might not have been at SAFE.
Nope.
I've always thought it was a brilliant thing, and I've actually seen the map guide, enterprise map guide that there is, can do this, where you basically make your data available in a way that Google is tricked into crawling.
Okay.
So if you search for 41st and 32nd food, bang, the food vendor thing for the record for that site. Each record gets indexed. Basically, you trick Google into indexing every single record.
Right.
So you could do it, for example, with that Chicago crime record. All 5.5 million things would be found by Google, and that's an interesting angle as well. And the Saxony people have done this with our friends at Conterra in Germany. Okay, Tom from DataPress says that the DataPress is actually spun out of the ODI.
Right, okay.
And I noticed that they have offices that are co-located. Okay. Let's see. Oh, right. I should echo this from Andrew from Esri, but he comments about all the stories that Esri is gathering from students in K-12 that are using open data.
Oh, okay.
We never touched on that, but of course, it is a way of engaging the minds of tomorrow with no friction.
Right, yeah, that's true.
And that's a huge benefit to open data. Yeah, so thanks very much, Andrew, for pointing that out. And yeah, making knowledge of open data more known into the education system will result in earlier uptake.
Yeah, I think the next generation are going to be the ones that really take this to the next level.
Yes, for sure. Let's see. And yeah, we'll follow up with a few of these people again asking for the stuff, but I think maybe we might be able to wind it down. I don't know if anybody else from our from SAFE has any other questions or Bernie from New Brunswick points out a nice catalog there at snb.ca. Geo New Brunswick has it. And actually, we didn't really touch on our Canadian government friends, but they have done a great job.
Yeah.
They were very early on the bandwagon.
They're using CKAN, yeah.
And our friends over at the Sherbrooke Mapping Center have been making. They actually contributed piles of data into OpenStreetMap, which is arguably a form of open data too.
Yeah.
So I think we'll probably open data for oil and gas. Boy, I don't know how I would answer that. I'm not aware of data sets. I mean, this is where this idea of well, I know that many governments make available data sets that oil and gas people can use.
But not. It's talking about the private corporations creating open data, isn't it? I think any of them could be potentially used. I mean, they don't allow you to. They don't force you into specific data models. So,
yes.
But I don't know of any specific oil and gas ones with unique requirements.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think we'll call it quits there.
Okay.
So that's it, folks. We're going to pause the webinar. You can keep asking questions in the dialogue if you want to, and we'll be hanging around a little bit, but we'll stop the broadcast there.